You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Okay, we're going to get started for Board of Finance regular meeting agenda, May 22nd, 2023. First on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the March 20th, 21st, and 23rd meetings.
I've read through the minutes and I find them true, so I'll move the motion.
Charlie's
I'll second
made
it,
the
Joe.
motion, seconded by Jeff. Is there discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Oh, I should note that Pam DeLeese is not able to join us in person tonight. She's joining on this phone. Okay. Second on the agenda is citizens communication, and this is an opportunity for citizens to speak briefly on any of the agenda items. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board at this point? If not, we'll move on to items number 3, 4, 5, and 6, which are presentations by the Andriel Group and GYL Financial Synergies with regards to the performance of the Police Pension Fund, the Volunteer Fire, the other post-employment benefits, and the Coastal Resiliency Funds. Those 4 funds for the quarter ended March 31st, 2023, and if necessary, rebalance the portfolios. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Joan. Nice to be here. Rob is going to start with the discussion of the global macro environment as well as the financial markets. And then Michael will go through the various, the experience of the various funds.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I'll try to keep my comments pretty big picture here. There's a couple of current events going on that we're all well aware of with regards to what's going on in Washington and the debate around the debt ceiling and the timing of those discussions, which is all happening in real time right now. So a lot to be seen and a lot to assess over the coming days and weeks. With regards to the period that we're going to report on, which is the quarter ending March 31, we had positive returns in both the equity and fixed income markets, with equity markets in the U.S. averaging up about 7%, and the fixed income markets being up about 3% for the period. Developed international has actually behaved much better during the first quarter and also on a year-to-date basis. So we've seen developed international, predominantly Western Europe and Japan, providing very strong returns in the equity markets on a global basis. Since the end of the quarter, we've seen a little bit of a pullback in fixed income as interest rates have drifted higher, and that's predominantly related to the debates that are going on currently in Washington, which is causing interest rates in the Treasury market to drift higher as a function of concern about the timing of the debt ceiling and availability of liquidity in the Treasury markets. So that is going to continue to be an immediate term challenge for us. So the conjecture about, when will the Treasury run out of money is to be seen, and we'll definitely find out as that continues to become information provided from Washington. As you all know from our last meeting when we met in March, we had just gone through several major bank failures. The banking environment has continued to be challenging, but much more calm than expected when we met in March, which has aided in the U.S. equity markets behaving slightly better than expected for that type of environment, even in the light of First Republic getting taken over by J.P. Morgan. On an economic basis, we are seeing an expectation that the U.S. gross domestic product is expected to slow in the current quarter as well as next quarter, and the expectation that the personal consumption expenditure, which is the Fed's primary reference point for inflation, is expected to moderate in the year ahead of us. The timing of how quickly inflation continues to come down is to be seen, but it seems to be coming down slower than people had expected 6 months ago. And that leads to the concern of what does the Federal Reserve do near term and intermediate term, which will be very widely followed over the next couple of weeks, and it's directly related to everything else that's going on in Washington. Of should the Fed raise rates further from where they are, there seems to be a growing set of factions inside the Fed of governors with different opinions starting to come public about some that think that rates should move a little bit higher still, and others thinking that they've done a lot and they want to take a pause and see what that cumulative lag effect is of their actions. So it's going to be interesting to pay attention to the Fed governors over the next couple of weeks during their public speaking times, and the messages they deliver as they try to set and establish market expectations. So, as I mentioned, it's been a positive equity market for the first quarter, as well as ongoing from Q1 to year to date. When you look at things year to date, we had the first quarter, the S&P 500 was up a little bit over 7%, year to date up just over 9%. Developed international equities were up about 8.5%, year to date now up about 12.5%. There has been some interesting dynamics making up the performance in the markets. Now, for the Board of Finance here and for the town of Branford, those dynamics are not all that meaningful because you're indexed, but it has been a very narrow market with a small number of constituents inside the indexes that have led the majority of the returns that we've experienced in the U.S. equity markets. And fixed income continues to behave well on an overall level. And we now are seeing interest rates that Mesro is being able to capture that are higher than we've seen in a very long time as they're reinvesting bonds that are maturing or trading inside the portfolio. And the other thing I thought was interesting to share is we're talking about will the gross domestic product in the U.S. slow down in the next 2 quarters, which is a very short-term period, is we're also seeing an expectation that in 2024, earnings in the overall marketplace are expected to accelerate. So as we work through this current period and the malaise and the difficulties, there are some positive indications longer term that we see. So, and the yield curve, as I've mentioned for our past number of meetings, continues to be inverted, and meaning that longer term treasury rates are below that of shorter term rates. And the short term end of the treasury market has been extraordinarily volatile, more so than we've seen in a very long time. So it makes for very, very interesting from an academic perspective. So just worth noting that those yields and the rates in the treasury market have been moving around drastically day to day, which makes for a lot of fascination from an investment professional's perspective. So, and as I mentioned to Charlie when I was preparing my notes for tonight, once I got through the inverted yield curve, I'll now hand things over to Michael to take us into the police pension plan.
Thanks, Rob.
Well, thank you, Rob, and good evening, board members. So we'll start on in the first section on page 18, as we usually do, with a 35,000-foot view of the police pension plan. As has been the case for some time, when we look at on the top right, we look at maximum return and minimum return. That gives you an idea as to how the fund performed in up markets versus how it performed in down markets. And we can see that the best single quarter that was had was plus 7.65 versus the policy, which was 8.79. However, conversely, the worst single quarter was a minus 10.7 versus the policy, which was a minus 11.3. And the end result is that all annualizes at 5.37, really spot on with the policy, which was at 5.42. That goes back to 2003. So the return has essentially been consistent with that of your policy, maybe a fraction below that. You've gotten 98 or 99% of the return of the policy, and that's come with about 7% less volatility, as defined by portfolio beta, And so that translates to a value added of 3 basis points, or the portfolio alpha. So in dollars and cents, what that translates to is on the bottom right of page 18. We had a starting value on 4/1/03 of $8.3 million. Since that time, cash flows contributions have more or less matched withdrawals. And going back to inception, you can see net cash flows of minus $103,000, and then earnings of just under 19.25 million, $19,235,000, bringing us to the quarter-end value of $27,442,000. As Rob mentioned, the market has ground higher, albeit with a little bit of volatility. And since the end of the quarter, there have been market returns of approximately $275,000 for the portfolio. There's also been outflows because of benefit payments. So the ending value has come down a little bit, but the market returns has been positive to the tune of about $275,000 since the end of the quarter. If we turn backward a couple of pages to page 15. As you're all aware, and as Rob mentioned, the equities are passively invested. So performance has been consistent with that of the underlying benchmark, a little bit of a drag over time, and that's owing to the fact it's not a function of the performance of the underlying index funds. It's a function of that the pension plan tends to be overweight in cash. We have made the decision for a number of years not only to kind of leg in the contributions, but there's also been excess cash that has been reserved for benefit payments in anticipation of an annual contribution. So in a rising market, that creates a little bit of a performance drag. On the fixed income side, performance has been consistent with and slightly ahead of the benchmark for all measured time periods. It's interesting, we had a conversation with your investment manager at Mesereau just a couple of weeks ago, and as we discussed, probably a year and a half or so ago now, there was a new portfolio manager at Mesereau, and in one of the comments that he made when we were talking to him was about the credit quality restriction, and we went into a little bit of a discussion about how that has, in certain market conditions has created a little bit of a headwind, but over time has created a tailwind, and certainly we've seen that during the first quarter, especially with some of the bank failures and what have you. And so, with that context, they continue to be perfectly comfortable using the credit quality restriction that's in place, that A2 or better. And then lastly, with the high yield portion of the portfolio, again, performance has been consistent with and ahead of the market up until we hit the 5-year number. At the 10-year number, we give a little bit back. Recall that on balance, a slightly more conservative approach to high yield has borne fruit for the portfolio, and you can see, especially when we go all the way back to the 5-year number, it's added about 0.5% in annualized excess returning 3.57 versus 3.04. As for rebalancing the portfolio, as we do prior to each meeting, we get together, your consultants as well as the finance director get together and we review ahead of time, and you're quite close to target. You're about 0.6% underweight to equities right now, but in light of being so close to the target, combined with the fact that we did raise enough cash recently so that there's plenty of cash to cover benefit payments until the annual contribution comes in. So long story short, no recommendation to rebalance this at this meeting.
Thanks, Mike. Questions on the police pension fund?
Yes.
Gary?
On the international equity portfolio, which is, number one, but I followed it on page 6. So the global performance is the plan to stay with this for the remainder part of the year? Are you going to pull out some, buy more?
I think in general, we want to stay on target with our strategic allocation. Our view is that whether we go into a period or stay in a period of kind of declining growth or whether we go into a modest recession, the long-term playbook is substantially similar. We've developed this strategic asset allocation, and we think, whether we're on the plus or the minus side of zero doesn't really impact that. It's, the equity or the international equity markets are arguably more attractively priced than the U.S. markets, although one thing that we've certainly learned in the past year or so is this concept of political risk or geopolitical risk is not this esoteric concept that never comes up. It comes up at the least opportune times, and we saw it, whether it be in Eastern Europe or in China over the past year. But on balance, we still think it's important to have a reasonable exposure to the international markets. And you are inherently underweight to international, at about 20% of the total portfolio. If you look at the kind of the world market capitalization, it's 55% U.S. or so, 45% non-U.S. approximately. So use that as a metric, and you're actually slightly underweight to international.
Okay, so
Charlie?
On page 18, it shows the ending market value. Did you mention what it is as of today?
Yeah, it is $27,069,000 as of Friday. Since the end of the quarter, there have been $648,000 in net outflows and $275,000 in earnings. So netted together, there's about $373,000 decline in the
thanks.
overall value.
Okay, other questions on the police pension? Okay, next.
So next, we'll turn to the fire plan. Substantially similar to the police plan, with the exception that you're in a bond index fund rather than an actively managed fund, just owing to the relative dollars involved. And so in the next section of your booklet, if we turn to page 18, again, the risk return metrics are substantially similar, although it's a much shorter period of time because this the volunteer fire plan was separated from the broader combined plan in 2015. Although you can see on a risk-adjusted basis, substantially similar to the police pension in dollars and cents. The initial deposit was $55,000, but we really have to add the cash flow into that. It was about $1 million that was originally moved into the or broken out and put in the volunteer fire plan, and about $377,000 in earnings. Since the end of the quarter, very little change, about $4,700 in earnings, about $8,000 in withdrawals. So the value as of Friday's close, $1,490,000. And similar to the police pension, we are really right on target with our asset allocation, and so no recommendation to rebalance the portfolio tonight.
Thanks, Mike. Questions on this plan? Okay, on to the next one, the OPEB.
So moving on to the OPEB, and we'll start again on page 19. And similar metrics, again, when we look at the maximum and minimum return on the top right, we've left something on the table when the market's running, however, provided downside protection when the market is selling off. And so on balance, the annualized return at 4.86 versus the benchmark at 4.98. So a little bit behind, as we've primarily been in a rising market when we've been heavy on cash, but pretty consistent with the return of the benchmark. And that's come with about 14% less volatility. So again, we have that positive alpha or value added. You can see it's 0.04 in this case. And in dollars and cents, that translates on the bottom right, beginning value to the OPEB of just over $4 million, positive cash flow of $24.88 million, and earnings of $7.82 million, bringing us to a value at the end of March of $36,785,000. Since the end of March, there have been just no real outflows, about $28,000, and which is primarily for expenses, and then $174,000 in earnings. So the value as of the close Friday was $36,881,000. Similarly, no recommendation to rebalance. The only thing that we did discuss with the finance director, and this leads into what Rob was talking about earlier about the debt ceiling in the negotiations, and that is, essentially we chatted a little bit about if things, depending upon how things kind of play out over the next week or two, there may be some volatility opportunities or what have you, and so we have a regular investment tranche coming up in July, and so again, depending, if we talked about if the markets, the equity markets are down 10%, we may want to call the finance director and kind of accelerate that the investment of those dollars,
Right.
but that remains to be seen.
As you might recall, there's tranching of dollars set aside to be dollar cost averaged over a total of a 7-year period inside of the OPEB, with the money going in semi-annually in July and January. So should we see a period of material volatility in the immediate term, we would convene a call with the finance director to discuss, and if appropriate, accelerate that investment. But we would need to all of the incoming information to use to make that kind of a recommendation.
Thanks, Rob.
And just for perspective, there's still just under $9.5 million in cash from that significant deposit that was made a couple years ago that's being invested over a period of 7 years. So that's what we're talking about, is just a...
Is those the treasury bills,
Exactly.
Correct.
which are earning 5% now?
It's probably, I don't, actually, Rob, do you recall?
Between
what they
4 and
were?
5.
I would get in the 4s, I think they were. 'cause
Right.
we
So it's
bought
not
them
like it's
about a
just
year or
sitting
so
there.
ago.
Correct.
No,
They're
not
in
at all.
treasury bills
Right,
that,
right.
earning, roughly 4% from at cost.
Right.
And as we're looking at the next maturity round, we have the July maturity to match up with this investment tranche. And then August will be the next maturity, and we'll work with the finance director as to how long to roll those out for along the schedule to maximize the return for the given level of risk.
Okay, thanks. Questions, Charlie?
Hey, Mike, I think you probably explained this, but what is the information ratio under risk return again?
Information ratio is mathematically, it is, it's the excess return or the alpha divided by the tracking error. And so what that means in English basically is, did you outperform, and if so, by how much, and how consistent was that outperformance?
So a negative number means what?
And a negative number basically means that we're slightly behind the benchmark, and that's owing primarily because due to the fact that we've been overweight in cash for so long, with the exception of 2022 and
So 0 is the number you want?
well, you want a positive number in the long
Yeah.
run, but I mean, that 0 is kind of your baseline.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, other questions? Okay, next.
Okay. So next, we'll move on to the coastal resiliency. And of course, very short history here on page 17. Again, the risk return metrics substantially similar to the pensions and the OPEB, in that because of the relative overweight to cash, and although there's not excess cash right now, but as the dollars were invested, and because there's such a short time history, a little bit of underperformance when the market has been moving up, but that's been complemented with overperformance, when the market's been moving down. That's come with about 14% less volatility, and so again, the alpha at 0. We want that number to kind of turn positive in the intermediate to long run, but in the short run, that's not really unexpected because we're so kind of beholden to cash flows in the market conditions in the short run. In dollars and cents, a total of $1.925 million was the original contribution amount, about $222,000 in additional deposits, and about $93,000 in negative returns from the market, owing primarily to rising interest rates. Recall, this is, although the equity returns have been kind of choppy, with a heavy allocation to fixed income in the Coastal Resiliency Fund, that's weighed on the since inception numbers. And so we can see, if we turn back to page 15, although we had positive returns for the most recent quarter and fiscal year to date, going back to the inception date on October of 2021, just before the market peaked, there have been negative returns since inception. It comes as cold comfort that they're slightly ahead of the benchmark, but has been minus 3.5% versus minus 4.1% for the benchmark. Since the end of the quarter, one second. Really no changes of any significance. About $2,000 in expenses and $3,500 in earnings, and so the value as of Friday's close was $2,056,000. And similar to the other plans, we're close to our target. Our target is 65% in fixed income. We're at 63.9%. And you may recall we have a kind of a little built-in buffer, if you will, versus what you're required to have by statute. So you're consistent with your investment policy, and no changes recommended tonight.
So this one has got a positive information number.
You're right.
This is Charlie's number. It's got a lower track number. It's got negative returns.
How high does it go before you do something?
Before it gets positive.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
keep going.
this is kind of the opposite extreme. It's almost like an artifact of, just because it's a short period of time. So I really wouldn't write much into it. A lot of it comes from the fact that when we're comparing to the benchmark, you have this, you can see that beta number is so low at 0.86, so the volatility is about 14% less than that of the benchmark. And so with that has come less volatility, equates to more consistency of returns. So we've had a little bit of outperformance and less volatility than the benchmark, so that kind of inflates the information ratio. But honestly, with a year and a half of history, it's kind of a meaningless number.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we should take it out of there.
That was good,
We
Mike.
can do that.
Yeah.
You definitely, that's
Add
going
5
on.
years from now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, okay, other questions on this coastal resiliency? If not, is there any other, as far as any, there's no recommendations to rebalance, there's nothing that we should be doing as a board for any type of anticipation of downturn in the economy or any other defensive moves? Stick to the policy?
I think the objective is to maintain the policy, rebalance it when it makes sense to rebalance, and when the deviation is far enough away from the policy. We're in an environment that is, very uncertain, so there's going to be volatility. But, we've been through this for 20 years, and that's probably not going to change. One of the benefits is that we do have a lot of cash in the accounts. So to the extent that we end up in a situation where we have a big drawdown in the markets, and we talked with Jim about this, we can make a recommendation that now might be the time to deploy some of that cash, if that were to happen. But we would have to have a lot of confidence that it was short-term volatility, not something real fundamental. And there's, in terms of the forecasts of economic growth here in the U.S., of what interest rates are going to do, for someone who reads research a lot of the day, you have the smartest people in the world contradicting each other and kind of fighting over what their views are. So there is no consistent view of what to expect at this point. So,
Okay.
but we're watching things, obviously very closely, and we've already made arrangements, or at least discussed, talking with Jim.
Different scenarios.
If something changes, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, next is number 7, to consider and if appropriate, approve a transfer request from the Board of Fire Commissioners for the following transfer from regular wages and salaries, $80,000, employment and testing, $6,000, communications, $6,000, for a total of $92,000, going into overtime, $80,000, other supplies, $6,000, purchase services, $6,000, for a total of $92,000. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, everybody. We started out the year with 4 vacancies. Those vacancies have all been filled, but we're also dealing with some long-term injuries that have caused deficits in the overtime account. The other accounts we can attribute to inflation, the deficit in the supply accounts, and repairs and maintenance. So I'm asking that you transfer the surplus in regular wages and salaries to cover overtime. Again, that surplus is there due to the vacancies earlier on in the year, and then the remaining from employment and testing and communications to cover the supplies and repair and maintenance. These transfer requests were approved by the board at their April meeting.
Thanks, Chief. Questions on these transfers?
Hi, Chief.
Hey, Tom.
Listen, did you say something, you guys are out on workers' comp?
I do have a couple of employees out and one on long-term sickness. So they all contribute to that
Really?
overtime.
How long have they been out?
We've had, since about January, they required surgery, so it extends the recovery time. We've got 2 of them back on light duty, but that doesn't help us with the overtime. So,
Thanks.
yes, sir.
Other questions?
I'll move it, Joe.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there discussion? Pam, are you listening? You have any questions or comments?
No questions.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Hi.
Thanks,
Thank you
Chief.
for your time.
Next is to consider and if appropriate approve a transfer request from the Board of Police Commissioners for the following 2023 as follows. From vehicle setup, $25,000 into police vehicles, $25,000. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening. Simply put, this is just to utilize some of the vehicle setup money that has grown over many years when we do admin cars or detective cars. The purpose of this transfer allows to purchase a vehicle for a replacement in our detective unmarked fleet.
Okay. Questions on this transfer? This is current year transfer. Moved by Harry.
Second.
Second, is there discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, see you.
Next is to consider and if appropriate approve a transfer request from the Director of Information Technologies for fiscal 2023 as follows. From hardware, $7,524. From travel, $746. From professional development, $3,580 for a total of $11,850. Transferring into overtime, $8,270, and accumulated sick, $3,580. Welcome, Debbie.
Okay, good evening. So this is just the current fiscal year to move funds that I have available to cover emergency after-hours work accumulated by a senior system network administrator. I used overtime pay for that. And the other item is for accumulated sick pay from one of our network engineers who retired last August.
Okay. Questions on this transfer?
I'll move it, Joe.
Moved by Charlie,
Second.
seconded by Victor. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All set, Debbie. Thanks. Next is item number 9 is to consider and if appropriate approve a transfer request from the Director of Parks and Recreation for fiscal 2023 as follows. From regular wages and salaries, $35,000, transferring into purchase services, repair and maintenance, $15,000, grounds repair and maintenance, $20,000. Alex.
Good evening. In the letter I sent to you to some of our escalating costs and expanding costs in both of our purchase services and grounds account. This is really a busy time of year for us, and when it comes towards the end, we're doing a lot of preparation of the beaches and the parks and the fields, and we also made some increases that are anticipated next year. We adjusted them into the line items for next year. So that is what is before you.
Okay, Alex, thank you. Questions on this transfer?
I'll move it, Joe.
Moved by Jeff,
I'll second.
seconded by Pam. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Well said, Alex.
Thank you.
Next is item number 10, to consider if appropriate approve a transfer request from the Highway Supervisor for fiscal 23 as follows. From regular wages and salaries, $10,009, transferring into other fuel, $9,124, and into clothing for $885 for a subtotal $10,009, and then the second transfer from professional development, $49, into furniture and fixtures, $49. Jamie?
Yeah, I'll cover this. Gary Zielinski called me actually on the way in, and he apologized. He's unable to attend tonight. Short notice. So the other fuel is to cover the average increases in the fuel increases over the year. So there's a deficit currently right now, and they're averaging it out with the cover for the rest of the fiscal year. So currently it's at average is about 345 per gallon, and they average about 535 gallons a month. So this is expected to carry them through the remainder of the year. They had 2 new employees come in this year, so to cover the uniform that is required per contract, plus there was an increase in the boot allowance that wasn't contemplated at the beginning of this fiscal year going in, so that's to cover that. As well as the $49 for furnitures and fixtures. The office refrigerator had to replace. They only had to carry $300 in that account, so $49 is to cover the shortfall for the in-office refrigerator.
Okay, questions on this transfer? Charlie?
Jamie, don't we have, like where it says a constant increase in fuel costs, don't we have a contract?
Yeah, so we go off the state bid, but it is tied to the market. So as there is volatility within the fuel, it's not locked in for the year.
Oh, it's not?
No, it's based off that it's locked into a market price in a field.
Is there a reason for that?
That's how typically with the commodities market, that's how it works.
It's usually based on a harbor
so-
price, and then something above a harbor price, but the state they negotiate that differential.
That margin.
And so we can benefit from that larger contract. Questions?
Move it, Joe.
Moved by Jeff,
Second.
seconded by Harry. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. Number 11 is to consider and if appropriate approve a transfer request from the Human Services Director for fiscal 23 as follows. From relocation services, $3,000 into purchase services, $2,500, and equipment rental, $500 for a total of $3,000. Peter, welcome.
Joe, gentlemen, ma'am. The purchase services where we have our electronic health records, there were some things that we did during the course of the year to supplement some of that, and so we were kind of short around a couple $1,000. So we wanted to just to fix that, so we have enough money at the end of this fiscal year. And we ran a trailer to put some storage stuff in there, and we were a little short on that, and that's where the $500 was going to come in to cover that cost.
So the purchase services is really for the medical records?
It has a combination of a lot of things in there, Joe. So yes, that's where we mainly is our medical records.
Okay. Questions on this transfer?
I'll move it.
Moved by Victor.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Pam. And next is request from, again, the Human Services Fund, Conference Center. Budget increase, please find the request for, this is a transfer from undesignated fund balance. Request will supplement a letter from the Human Resource Department to engage a revenue cycle management service. So why don't we hear about this? I know, Peter, you did send us a letter.
I did send a letter, yes.
And so, and I think on page 2 it says, we do not have many timely filing claims, but I think you meant to say untimely filed claims?
No, they're called timely.
They're kind of timely.
When we provide a service,
right,
and we have to submit the bill to the insurance companies, a lot of companies have a certain amount of time for you to submit it. And if you miss that time, then they kind of ding you a little bit. So it's usually 90 days.
Right, so you have that frequently?
Not that frequently, but we do have it occasionally.
It's the way it's worded, it sounds like, it says we do not have many timely filed.
Right, we don't have many timely claims, filing claims, so we do miss some. It might have been worded.
Gotcha.
Was it worded wrong?
I had the same conversation.
Okay, so
you could have helped.
I think I get what you mean. You usually have timely filed claims, but some slip through the cracks.
Right, it's called timely filing. That's their jargon. That's the insurance company's jargon, it's not ours.
Okay.
But the whole purpose of the revenue cycle management, it's a billing company. Essentially, that's what it is. So we know that on May 11th that the public health emergency ended. And so with that, not so much the insurance companies yet, they're going to catch up, but the Medicare and Medicaid have decided to make some changes in how we're going to provide the services. So part of it is that the Zoom meetings we've been having, they're going to stop. And for them to continue, we have to justify to the, at least Medicaid for sure, justify why we have to have a client use the Zoom instead of being in person. So that's one of the issues that is coming up with that. Some of the other issues is people have to be seen more frequently by a prescriber. Before, during the healthcare emergency, they were able to do that by Zoom. Especially if they're going to get controlled medications, they've got to come in and they got to see the prescriber. Some of the people that we've been working with have some mobility issues, so we're going to have to figure out how we're going to be able to get them into there. So with all these changes that are happening, and we're expecting more to happen, it's the burden is going to be on trying to stay on top of all the changes. And I've got one person that works for us that's a biller. So it's hard to keep up with that, especially claims that we have to go and research. Because if they come in and say, we're not going to pay you because you didn't complete something, we didn't dot an I, cross a T. There's a lot of research that goes into that. What we're looking at is with the billing company, they do all that for us. So what they're asking is, we're going to charge you a flat fee, and anything over X amount of dollars, we're going to charge you a percentage, which I think was 3.99%. It comes up to around the same, around $2,000 a month to $24,000 a year. What they also can do that we have a tough time doing is the claims that we can't get to. We can't do the research because we're getting bogged down with other claims that are coming in. They will go in, research those claims, and hopefully they'll be able to give us the money that's outstanding, which should lower our accounts receivables. They get a percentage of that. Whatever they bring in of the old claims, they'll be able to take a percentage of that. We're thinking that with this, we'll be able to probably make more money, get more revenue for this, because this company that's all they're going to be doing, is to be working on the claims with us. They'll have the dialogue with the client, and everything's going to be by mail or email. So if there's any questions, they'll be able to answer those questions. And we're going to have the one person that works for us as the biller, she'll also, what she'll be doing is be interfacing with that company. We just think it's going to have a better, positive impact for us. We still have to figure out what more changes are going to be coming in because of the health crisis is over, according to the feds. And I think we're going to be able to increase our revenues.
So is this a long-term contract, or what's the term?
This is for a year right now.
For a year,
Yeah.
year by year, and you'll
Yeah, we want to see how it's going to
evaluate
work. We were optimistic that it's going to work for us, but I think we have to look at it for a year and then do a kind of analysis. Is this something that we can continue? Because I think we can get a 2-year contract or a 3-year contract.
it? Okay. Okay, Charlie?
So it sounds like you send the claim to this new RCM, right, and they kind of audit it before it's sent on?
Yeah.
Right, and then get the information from
Right.
you or dig into it, right, and then it's submitted?
We submit it through our electronic system. So
Yes.
they'll get that, and then they review it. If it's pushed back for whatever reason, they take a look at it, find out what's pushed back, and then they correct it.
Okay, they don't review it before it goes in?
I think they do, Charlie. My admin person, who was really on top of this, she was going to come today, but she can't, but she's the one that's been working with them. So we've talked to other businesses that have this particular company we're looking at, and they feel that they're on top of these things. Their job is to make sure that we collect the money. That's how they collect the money.
Or what do they get paid again?
They're going to get paid $2,000 a month. And I don't think it was based on a number of claims. Anything that's outstanding, maybe above the $2,000, they'll take a look, because they're bringing more money in, they take a percentage of that.
All right, so it's a minimum of 2?
Minimum
plus-
of 2.
Plus something. Okay.
Plus something if they bring
All right.
more in.
So you're figuring the 26 is for all of next year?
Yes.
Okay, other questions? Jim, you've taken a look at this?
I haven't gotten into the details of it. I know they went to the Board of Selectmen last week.
Yeah, last
Okay,
we approved the contract.
okay.
I know Peter's been looking at the system for a while now.
We've looked at it for a few months. We were looking at other systems, but we feel that this one, it's in Washington, but they're able to handle the size of the revenue that we generate. Some local ones want over $1 million. We don't do that. So, and we did check, like I said, we did check with other businesses that have, and they felt that these people were reputable. They do certifications for us too, so that helps to take the burden of the office people, because hiring more people, I think, would just be more of a burden on us and on the town. And to contract this out, I think it's going to be a plus.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Other questions?
I'll move it. Second.
Moved by Victor, seconded by Jeff. Discussion? So let me read these. It's going to be an increase in fund balance, human services fund of $26,000, and increase of purchase services, $26,000. So that'll be, that'll tie with your motion and second for that. All in favor for that?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the second one is resolved that the Board of Finance recommends to the RTM an increase in human services fund budget for fiscal '24 from $1,913,499 to $1,939,499. The increase will be funded through an appropriation from fund balance. Somebody want to move that?
I'll move it.
Moved by Charlie,
Second.
seconded by Jeff. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Pam. Thanks, Peter. You're all set.
Peter.
Next is item number 12?
13.
Oh, 13. Okay, I thought we were going to go to 14, but, okay. Number 13 is to approve an issuance of a credit card to the superintendent of schools at a maximum limit of $10,000, and the proposed resolution is resolved that the Board of Finance authorizes the Finance Department to apply for a credit card issued through the Bank of America with a maximum limit of $10,000 for the superintendent of schools. Welcome, Don.
Thank you.
I'll move it.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. This is our opportunity. We got to go to bed here.
What are you gonna cut it, 95?
Hi, Don. Anything we should know?
No, although it was before my time, I believe the current credit card was issued specifically for Superintendent Hernandez. And it probably should be viewed more as a district credit card than just
Sure.
superintendent's credit card. We have a number of subscriptions for some types of software and other publications and things that we use that for, and then other travel and related items that, for companies that don't accept a purchase order. So we pay the full balance every month, so there's never any interest charges, and we need it for the district. Right?
It's that simple, yes. Questions?
I'll second it.
Wait a minute.
And on the current card, though, is in the current superintendent's name?
That is correct.
Okay, it's not in the school name or anything.
The credit card companies will only issue.
Oh, it's got to be in a name?
There needs to be an actual human being tied to it.
So this one will be in the name of the new superintendent?
Yeah,
That's correct.
okay.
Yeah, that's generally what we do. Sorry, Harry, did you want
I
to?
stand by my,
Harry's moved this, and I think, was it Victor that seconded it? Okay, is there discussion? Pam, you have any questions?
No, I was just curious if this was something new, but it's not. I understand it's just a name change.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. All right. Okay, other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
Don, you're all
Thank
set.
you.
Thank you.
Have to do the resolution or not?
We did it. I
Oh, you did,
read it,
okay.
yeah. Okay, number 14 is to hear a request from the tax collector to approve the suspense list for the 2017 grand list year for motor vehicles, motor vehicle supplement, and personal property. Welcome, Robert.
Evening, gentlemen. Thank you. And Pam, hope you feel better. So pursuant to Connecticut State Statute 12165, the tax collector is presenting a suspense list for motor vehicle supplemental, and personal property grand list for 2017 for approval from the board. Also, we are cleaning up older grand lists that run back through 2008, which have been missed through prior year suspensions, which are now totaling up to $265,320.99 for 465 units. So for some reason, there were a number of these accounts that should have been suspended back through 2008 that were missed, so we're just cleaning that up now.
Okay, so it's $84,149 for motor vehicles, $181,171 for personal property, for a total of $265,320. Is there questions on the tax collector's request? We've all gotten copies of the detail, all 82 pages of it.
Yeah, 102 pages.
Very thorough, thank you.
Yeah, and so just want to know again that we are continuing to move forward on collecting. Just to give you an idea, today we're at 98.94%. So it breaks down to real estate is 99.49, personal property is 94.99, motor vehicle is 96.92, and the motor vehicle supplemental is 92.37, which gives us our 98.94. We still have 30 days to go or so, so hopefully we can bring that in over the 99%
Nice.
pile.
Okay, is there questions, discussion? Somebody want to move this?
I'll move it.
Moved by Charlie, seconded by Jeff for $265,320.99 to suspense. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Robert, and then next is to hear a request from the tax collector to approve suspense list for mobile homes for grand list years 2005 through 2021. And Bob, you want to walk us through that?
Yeah,
briefly?
so this is an unusual request due to it being real estate, and, in my write-up, you could see that the state has gone from a chattel, meaning a title, to a deed process, allowing us to go ahead and place liens on that property, real estate liens for collection. So, over the years, I think there's just been an issue with collecting mobile homes. So when I started looking at this, you could see they go back to 2005. There was really not an aggressive collection practice going on. So, with that, we found that mobile homes were being demolished or sold or abandoned, and the owners of the community parks were coming in under that 2180 regulation, allowing them to take possession of the units, therefore extinguishing all liens and fees and municipal taxes, and those were things we didn't know about. So as we continued our research and investigation, these are the 212,000 that need to come off because that property does not exist any longer, it's gone. So typically you would not do this with real estate because you would sell the asset and take whatever the deficiency balance is. In this case, there's nothing to get.
In this case, there's land that's owned by someone else, and this is basically
Yeah, this
leased
is
property.
all leased land on the community parks property. They pay a fee every month for that. Again, what typically happens is they go delinquent on that rental fee, and after that, they usually abandon the property, and then from that point on, the park owner petitions the court, and the court awards them the property. Typically, it's not worth the value. As I stated, it's a very aging population of units with declining values. So for us to go in and take it as a tax, to go into the foreclosure and bid on a $14,000 tax bill for a unit that's worth about $2,000, it just isn't worth it for us. Because we would have to make up either move the unit somewhere or make up the rental payments to keep it there, so.
Okay, questions from Bob on this request for suspense write-off of $212,105.79? Charlotte?
Hey, Bob, this is the first time in several years that I've ever seen this kind of thing on mobile homes. How is it that you are suddenly coming into mobile homes?
Well, they've been here for a long time,
Yeah, I know,
Charlie.
but how did you happen to dig it up?
Well, I looked at the high rate of delinquency in that area, right? In the mobile home parks itself. It was a standout to me. And I started looking at that. And as, again, we uncovered that, this is 12 months of research. It didn't happen overnight, okay? We started looking at it and saying, well, what happened to that unit? What happened to this unit? And in the process from 2005, these parks have turned over. So the management has changed, the owners have changed, so it's very difficult to track down all the documentation. So, we probably have some stragglers that we're going to find also. I mean, we found things such as where the unit was sold and the check was made to the town of Branford and never got here. So when I called the owner of the trailer up, mobile home up, they indicated to me that they had paid that. And so I went back and found that it was a fraudulent transaction. What happened was someone in the community park office endorsed that check, took the money, and so we were able to get our money back from the community park owner, which they reimbursed us for that. So it was just a very in-depth study that we did on this particular portfolio.
Thanks.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah, a lot of
yeah.
past overlooking.
Yep, clean things up. Okay, other questions on this request?
I'll move it.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Who seconded that, please?
Victor, I think. Next is, I was moved by Victor, seconded by Charlie.
Thank you.
Okay, next is item number 16, is the discussion with the tax collector regarding tax lien assignments. Again, Bob has given us an overview of his request in regards to getting someone in here to follow up on the liens. Bob?
Yeah, I'd just like to open up an informal discussion regarding tax lien assignments. As I indicated, many municipalities are utilizing this tax assignment to assist them in the collection of funds of delinquent real estate. This is nothing new. It's been around for a long time. Not a lot of communities utilized it, but it is now becoming a pretty popular tool in the collection enforcement arena. So again, the third party purchases these tax assignments and pays us all of our delinquent taxes, all of our interest, and any fees. Typically, it's a 3-year contract. They make the town again becomes whole. What happens in the new GL year, they are not collecting those taxes, we are. So we have some folks that are, for a number of reasons, they may be in bankruptcy or whatever, that are 2 or 3 years behind, taking us a long time to get to those dollars. This is an instant way of doing it. We can assign that to the investor, and the investor then pays us. So what it does is that it encourages timely payments. Taxpayers know that their tax debit's been sold, and they know that they're going to be pursued for the collection. And what happens there is the third party would bring any legal action that would happen, not the town, even though it is an arm of the town. It is sold to that investor. So if it's a foreclosure or anything else that might come up through that process, it is not the town who's doing it. It is this particular investor. Again, it reduces the administrative burden, allowing the tax office to concentrate on the more difficult collections, such as personal property and automobiles. Personal property is very difficult to collect, as you know. The further it gets down the line, the older it gets, the more difficult it is to collect. So I'm not saying that we should sell all of our delinquents. I think we can pick and choose the past due accounts that we want to sell and get our dollars back. I had the opportunity to go to a conference, and I met a few of these investors and engaged with one of them called Tower Funding. They are a fortress company. They've been buying tax liens in Connecticut for over 20 years. They currently do business in Hartford, Bridgeport, Milford, Newington, Danbury, East Hartford, West Haven, Cheshire. So those folks are engaging in selling their tax liens that they do not want to collect for various reasons. They will also buy units that we have already foreclosed on, that may be brownfields, things of that nature. So a good opportunity. And I did have an opportunity Friday to have a conference call with them. I did invite Harry, he was around that day. And I had Harry listen to the call just so he could get a feel for who these people are and what they do. So again, this has to be a resolution by the legislative body. I just want to bring it to the Board of Finance attention as to an opportunity that we have.
So, Bob, what's usually the factoring percentage?
They gave me a quote right now of about 600 and change, and they've given us a 1.5% premium over that. So we're getting a 1,015 price over par.
So they're paying you a premium?
Yes.
And this is on a tax bill with interest, or?
With interest, fees, even if we have that out to an attorney who's going through the foreclosure procedure right now, they will pay any of those reasonable fees that are there.
So tell me, why are they paying a premium for this?
because of where we're located, the type of properties that it is. So again, you may be looking at a 30,000. Let's say we have a very delinquent person who's 5 years delinquent, it may be a $30,000 past due bill with fees. That property may be worth $350,000.
So they're going after the properties.
They are, well, one of the things that they can do that we can't do by statute is they could make payment arrangements, and meaning that they could truly make a 60-month payment arrangement with someone, versus we can't do that by state statute. Because they are a third party, they're allowed to do that. And so for us, we suggest what they should be paying, and hopefully that works, but they actually do that. If we sold them, let's say, our portfolio of $600,000 tomorrow, they could not create a foreclosure within 1 year. So it would have to be at least by contract, have to be a year out. It's a 3-year contract. So, I haven't called any of the folks that they're doing business with today, but that would be something I would do prior to us engaging them. Again, the contract would have to be approved through our legal counsel and also through our finance department and our first selectman.
So it wouldn't come to us, it would come to us as a long-term contract?
The way it usually is structured, and I guess we can do it differently, but everyone has used the legislative body, and it's gone to the selectmen versus the Board of Finance.
So I know they've had, this factoring for years out there, but usually it was at a discount, not necessarily at a premium. And it said, I know, I haven't followed it in years, but it had some really good reviews and some pretty strong backlash.
Yeah, so some of the backlash is if the property is sold, just as if we foreclosed on it or they foreclosed on it. The statute, the Connecticut statute is that we can only keep what we have that's owed in our taxes and reasonable collections. So any profit, any equity goes back to the homeowner.
Right. Under this contract that you're proposing, that would be the same terms?
It would have to be because it's in the statute.
Right. And so what return would this company get if they're paying us a premium and then they have their fees and...
Well, they would get the interest. They would collect all the interest, the 18% interest.
Okay, so we get the tax.
We get the tax and the interest.
Okay.
So today, if we went from, let's take 2020, GL 2020, back to 2018, they would pay us the principal that's outstanding, as well as any interest that's outstanding, as well as any fees that are outstanding.
Right.
So we would, plus, they would give us a 1.5% premium over that.
And then that amount is fixed, and then they have a year to negotiate and they would earn the same statutory interest?
That's correct.
So that's really where they'd get the 18%.
Correct.
For that year on that base amount.
Correct.
And other fees. Victor?
They keep the entire profit if they sell a $30,000 debt for $50,000. They keep the extra 20.
No, by statute they cannot. They have to live under the same statute rules in Connecticut that we do.
That's returned to the equity owner, whoever?
Correct.
I see. And would you propose doing this on owner-occupied properties? And
it would be on owner-occupied, non-occupied, commercial, any of the properties.
Yeah.
Again, Victor, we could pick and choose what we want to sell. So someone that is a chronic delinquent, it's always 2 to 3 years behind, you may choose to do that. So you'd have to put, a policy together on what you're doing.
But your lien is always accumulating equity, even on an owner-occupied piece. It's always accumulating equity from that lien, so you're really not at risk unless you go over the value, right?
Right, and they would not purchase that, or they would purchase it at a discount. So we may have a property in our portfolio today that the town owns that they may give us an offer on that we can't sell, or we haven't tried to sell. Again, I see that they're buying lots of different properties with brownfields, subdivisions with brownfields. So again, we'd have to look at what we wanted to sell them.
Thank you.
Charlie?
Bob, typically, what's the number of properties that might be in the package?
It could be as many as we want.
Well, I mean, is it 20 or 100 or 500 or how many?
Right now, we probably have probably 30 properties.
Okay.
Somewhere in that area that we would consider. And again, we may not, because again, we're collecting every day. So the list that they looked at, I've already collected a couple of those folks, right? So they've come in and satisfied their obligation to us, so those would come off the list.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so there's no action required by us. This is a heads up for tonight. Is that
Yes, that's
where we're at? And if you could keep us posted and maybe provide us a little more information about the contract and as well as the company that you're looking at engaging. Interesting. It's another tool in your
Correct.
available to you for tax collection and enforcement. So it's not a bad thing. I think you just have to make sure that you understand all of the collateral issues that might be out there.
Yeah, and again, it's pretty much like the mortgage business where they're selling the asset, right? Or they're selling an interest in it, so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up is item number 17, to consider and if appropriate, approve a transfer request for a salary adjustment for fiscal '24 as follows. From contingency, $14,315, transfer out into animal shelter for the same amount, and then corresponding in Fund 206 would be $14,315 on both the revenue side as well as the appropriation for regular wages and salaries, and the corresponding resolution would be resolved that the Board of Finance recommends to the RTM an increase in the animal control fund budget for fiscal '24 from $450,106 to $464,421. The increase will be funded through an appropriation through general fund contingency account. And Jim, this is the contingency for next year?
Correct, for '24.
Do you want to give us an update on that one?
Yeah, you have three items on your agenda tonight. And so the balance in the '24 contingency, if you were to approve all these actions, is $2,077,951.
2077951, thanks.
Yep.
I'm sorry, before or after?
After.
That's after. You have three items on tonight's
Okay.
agenda.
And so this is a request for the, this is with regards to the increasing the animal control salary, Jamie, or Jim?
Yes. So the first one is for which I believe it was your March meeting, you heard a presentation and acted on for the director of the animal shelter adjustment.
Yep.
As well as we also had a discussion and action on the police department position, that's the crime analyst position. And the one you did not hear at that meeting was the IT, within the IT budget. That is adjustment from the network engineer that after reviewing the job responsibilities and functions, it was determined to move that position, title change to Senior System Administrator. And, this position, maintains and develops town's emergency technical services as well as other public sector administrative services, or technical services. That position this past year has been receiving overtime, so you can see that's where that change is within the current or within the proposed budget or the adopted budget, I should say. It's taking out of overtime and putting that into salaries. The HR director did issue a letter stating that they did a salary survey of area towns. They did that along with North Branford, and found that for a similar position, the average was about 85,000, and that's where this position was going to. I believe it was, the exact dollar amount was 85. I'm sorry.
Okay, so,
80, I'm sorry, Joe, it's going to 87,500.
yeah,
This was also, I should just mention, was discussed at the committee level at the RTM in preparation, when they were considering the budget. However, the committee, the Admin Services Committee, did not take action. We were expecting that possibly the RTM would take action at when they adopted the budget. However, since there was no action coming out of committee, although it was discussed, I think there was a mutual understanding among the caucuses that they wouldn't act on it as the floor. Rather, they spend a good part of the night discussing items that were never discussed in committee. So that's why we're back here tonight dealing with this.
so, all of these three items here were discussed at the RTM level but not acted on.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so the first one is the one that we're most aware of, and I'll take a conversation on that. If the board has any questions on the animal shelter, animal control general fund request.
I'll move it, Joe.
Moved by
Thought
Jeff.
that last one.
Moved by Jeff. Second by Victor on that one. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's fine. And then the other two, as Jamie explained to us, one is for the police department, we come out of contingency, $17,354, and go into regular wages and salary, $17,354. And then the third one is the IT overtime, transfer from overtime, and again in the new budget, $99,37, and going into regular wages and salaries, $99,37. So, questions or comments with regards to that request, those requests?
I'll move those two.
Second.
Moved by Jeff, seconded by Charlie, I'm sorry, moved by Victor. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Jamie. And Jim. Okay, number 18 is to consider a transfer request from the finance director for fiscal '24 to enter in a new lease for the town postage machine. Okay, and Jim has provided us with a request here for $5,460, which would come out of contingency. Transfers to replace the postage meter in the town hall. Presently, we have a variety of options based on features and functionality. Speaking with Jamie and Catherine, it is our collective belief that we should budget for the option 3 and make our purchasing decision following a demonstration of models, and I think that was endorsed by the town clerk about an hour ago.
Oh, was it? Thank you, Lisa. Okay.
So, Jim, you want to...
I think I'm not going to, we ran the table so far, I mean, literally right here, we literally ran the table, so I probably, I think Bob would actually probably agree with it too, because I think it would help, his office spends a lot of time stuffing envelopes for delinquent notices, so I think his office would probably also be endorsing it.
Charlie, I'm sure you got a question?
Yeah.
No, you good?
Yeah. Postage, come on.
Just questions from the board?
I'll move it.
Moved by Victor,
Second?
seconded by Pam. Is there additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 19 is to consider and if appropriate approve the following resolution. And it's a resolution reallocating bond proceeds derived from the issuance of Town of Branford, Connecticut general obligation bonds issued for 2020, issued and dated July 2nd, 2020, and adopted and recommended for adoption by the representative town meeting. And this is a following a research by Jim and Jim's request that in fact I'll read the resolution, really basically reallocating unused cash to projects that need cash on the capital side. So whereas the town of Branford issued its $13,105,000 general obligation bonds in 2020, and which $9,002,327 of such bonds were allocated to new money projects, and whereas $2,710,000 of the bonds were issued for the sewer system improvements of 2019 project, and $845,000 from such proceeds will better meet the capital flows of the town if allocated to and expended for the animal shelter project. And whereas $1,750,000 of the bonds were issued for the East Industrial Road reconstruction project, and $1,750,000 of such bonds from the proceeds will better meet the capital cash flow needs of the town if $1,550,000 is allocated to and expended for the animal shelter project, and $200,000 is allocated and expended for the police headquarters renovation project. And whereas the town authorized $4,595,000 of bonds, town to be issued to finance animal shelter project, which is progressing and expending funds, and whereas the town authorizes $325,000 of the bonds to be issued to finance the police headquarters renovation project, which is progressing and expending funds. Now, therefore, the town hereby resolves that $845,000 of the bonds issued to finance the sewer system improvements of 2019 is hereby reallocated to the animal shelter, and $1,750,000 of the bonds issued to finance East Industrial Road reconstruction is hereby reallocated by $1,550,000 to the animal shelter and $200,000 to the police headquarters renovation project. So when I saw this, I gave Jim a call the other day and said, "Jim, what's going on?" And we spent about a half hour going back through some of the history of arbitrage and the 1986 tax changes that really took the fun out of some of the municipal financing and investing back in the day. But Jim did explain to me that we borrowed money anticipating it to be expended based on the 2019 projects, which it hasn't. So now he's running up against some arbitrage issues that we can resolve by reallocating the idle cash to the projects that need the cash to pay for the projects that are moving forward. So I think I summarized it, Jim, but you're much more
articulate. Yeah, I think you did summarize it.
I
think the only thing I would add is earlier in tonight's presentation when they were talking about the markets and in this booklet here, I circled page 10 because it said the market has priced the potential for one more rate hike. However, the market expects an easing cycle to begin in second quarter of 23 with a rate falling to nearly 3% by late 2024. So in essence, this gives us time if we want to finance these projects down the road, but these proceeds now will meet an immediate need. And I think, as you're aware, when we do authorize debt for projects, we have certain limitations in which we have to reimburse ourselves. So rather than reimburse ourselves with debt, say in calendar year 24, this will actually fulfill those cash needs for the animal shelter and what we anticipate for the police study. And then down the road, for example, when that sewer project or projects, it's really a series of projects, needs the cash, then we could finance it. I think the other thing to underscore is it doesn't take away the authorization. Okay, so we still have the authority to spend. It just moves the proceeds. And the other is with the school ground, East Industrial, I do this all the time, school ground East Industrial Road project, the $1,750,000, after we had financed that, we were aware, as you might have seen in some of the backup, that we had this grant for $2,250,000. And so once that project, it's federally funded, starts to get underway, and we have a better sense as to what that will cost, and there might be a local share there, then we could always issue that debt. But essentially, those bond issues probably won't occur in the future now, and we have the flexibility because we're moving some of this. And as Joe pointed out, you're not supposed to earn more on your investment of the bond proceeds than you're paying in interest on the bonds, to put it simply. And when the rates have gone up dramatically over the past 12 months, starting around November, we started earning a higher rate on our investments than these bond proceeds. So that certainly puts us in a negative position, in which this will largely alleviate, because once it gets transferred to the animal shelter and that police station project, at least on the animal shelter, it'll be deemed as spent. So you can't invest at a higher rate what you've already spent. So that's how it all ties together. And the resolution was prepared by our bond counsel, so they're the ones that help us with tracking this stuff. And they're the ones that prepare what's called a tax regulatory agreement, which myself and the first selectman and the town treasurer sign when the town does a bond issue. So.
Thanks, Jim. Questions on this request? Somebody would want to move it?
Joe.
Moved by Jeff.
Second.
Seconded by Victor. Is there questions? Pam, got any questions on this one?
No questions?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Jim. And number 20 is to hear an overview of the fiscal year 23-24 budget highlights from the finance director and set a mill rate for fiscal 23-24. Jim has been kind enough to summarize the changes that the RTM accomplished and the impact on the mill rate. Jim, you want to go over this for us?
Yes. Basically, the only change that the RTM made was pursuant to a letter which was sent to the RTM and the Board of Finance, and that is talking about some of the changes to CMERS. Now, CMERS impacts town employees, with the exception of police employees. And you may have seen that weekend leading up to that, that the state controller, Sean Scanlon, who lives in Guilford and was formerly our state senator, had been working with the committee, actuaries and some other folks, to try to address what has been a continual increase in our pension contributions for CMERS. So they instituted a series of draft changes, changing the amortization period, changing the COLAs, are two of the main things, and when those COLAs go into effect, and that will produce cash savings over a period of years. Now, this change, this proposal, has not been signed into law as of yet. It's been met enthusiastically by, obviously, the controller and the governor, labor leaders, and also the head of the Republican in the House, the representative from North Branford, Candelora. So basically, there is a lot of support for this, so it's very likely that this thing will pass. However, with 190,000, it's really essentially a hedge. It's saying, okay, well, if this was proposed to offer some tax savings, if that's one of the purported benefits of this to municipal taxpayers, let's take a piece of that, but yeah, and then we'll just hedge to see if it actually gets signed, which in all likelihood it will. And at that point, I'll come back to this board and ask for the other savings to go into the police pension plan. That would be my recommendation. It's obviously up to you guys to vote that up or down. So it's kind of a like-for-like transfer. You're essentially saying, okay, well, we're getting a break here, and we're going to actually, so we're giving some relief to the taxpayers, 190,000. So now your mill rate's 1.49, just under 1.5%. And you're also using some of those dollars to reduce the taxpayer's liability in the pension plan. So, and so that scenario seemed compelling enough that the RTM did vote for that, even though that was not done in committee because of the timing of the release of the information.
Jim, how did this impact, this potentially impacted the Board of Ed?
The Board of Ed would also have a savings if this became law. I believe their savings was probably, I could double check, but I think it was around $300,000.
Okay. Thank you. And so this was the only change by the RTM was this change. And so that would, why don't we start with any questions on what Jim has presented to us? Okay. So what I'll do is just briefly go over the highlights of the budget, the good work that all the boards have done on this. So we've got we have total Board of Finance, with the RTM changes, we have the revised expenditures of $130,315,768. Jim has got the revenues of $16,902,344, which is a net, produces a net requirement from taxation of $113,413, and at 98% collection rate, and with a grand list of $3,879,000. That equates to a mill rate of 29.89. Correct, Jim?
Yep.
And so, and that would be a 1.49% increase, which is slightly below what we had recommended based on the $190,000 difference. So the vote would be that we would set the mill rate, accept the numbers that Jim has presented, and adopt a mill rate of 29.89 mils.
You want to move it?
Yes.
I'll move it. I'll second.
Moved by Harry, seconded by Jeff. Questions, Pam or anyone?
Questions here?
Okay, so no more discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous on this. Thank you. Thanks, Jim. And what I would point out is just to thank again Jim and Jamie's office and Lisa for all the good work that went into this budget, along with the RTM and committees and tax collectors and others that contributed to the success of this budget and what we're looking at for 2024. With that, and no other business to come before the board, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.